So welcome dear students. In the previous class we discussed what is pollution, what are the different types of pollution, what are pollutants and the different types of pollutants. Also in the Google Meet class we had a brief introduction. I gave you a brief introduction on what is EIA and what are the various stages involved in the EIA process. So what is EIA? So EIA or Environmental Impact Assessment is actually a process of evaluating the likely environmental impacts of a proposed project or development by taking into account the interrelated socioeconomic, cultural, and human health impacts. So, when I say impact, it means both beneficial as well as adverse impacts. Or environmental impact assessment is the process which ensures that all the environmental matters are taken into account quite early in the project at the planning process itself. So, whenever a project is planned or a new development is planned in any city or in any place, we have to consider what are the environmental effects. It may be beneficial, as I told you, it may be beneficial effects or it may be adverse effects. So, what are the various effects of this particular project on the environment? So, it has to be done at a quite early stage, that is in the initial stage, that when the project is being planned. So it also takes into consideration not only the technical and the economic considerations, but also the traditional aspects like how it impacts the local people, the biodiversity, etc. So EIA is actually a management tool that minimizes the adverse impacts of any developmental projects, and this is mainly to achieve sustainable development through adequate and protective mitigation measures. So what are the main benefits of doing an EIA? So there are a lot of benefits or advantages when we do an EIA, when an EIA is being done for any project. So they may be listed as below. So it actually lowers the project cost in the long term. Then there will be increased acceptance of the project. So whenever we say that a project has undergone an EIA process, then there will be increased acceptance by the public for that particular project. Again, there will be an improved project design. Moreover, it can prevent the future liabilities or expensive alterations in the design of the project. So the EIA actually should identify, describe and assess the direct and the indirect effect of a project on the following factors. So when we say environment, it includes the soil, the water, the fauna and the flora, as well as the human beings, and also the interaction between all these factors. That is, there will be an interaction between the soil, water, the human beings, flora and fauna. So all this will have some effect. The EIA should identify what are the effects of the proposed project on all these factors. And also there are other factors like cultural heritage. There may be the climate and the landscape, and EIA therefore should have a very strong social dimension. Now coming to the three core values of EIA. So we can say that the three important core values of an EIA are integrity, utility and sustainability. So integrity, it means that the EIA process should actually be fair, it should not be biased. So it should be unbiased, it should be balanced, and also it should be objective. Also the utility. So EIA process should provide a balanced and credible information for decision making. So there should be no bias, it should not be biased, and the information whatever is being brought towards the end of the EIA process should be credible. And also the sustainability. So the EIA process should result in sustainable environment, and it should result in environmental safeguard. So it should actually safeguard the whole environment. Now here I have a pictorial representation of EIA. So we know that EIA is a systematic process of identifying the future consequences of any project or any proposed action in the environment. So as you see here, the EIA process should be transparent. It should have some certainty. There should be participation, especially participation of the public. It should be practical. It should be flexible. There should be credibility, accountability, and all that. So everything, all these clubbed together, we have told that it should have these are the three main core values. It should have integrity, utility, and sustainability. Now, what are the benefits of conducting an EIA? So as you see here, there are lots of benefits. Whenever a project undergoes EIA, there are lots of benefits, like it protects the environment. Suppose the study or the assessment report says that the so and so project has an adverse effect on the environment. We can either drop the project, or we can find out any other mitigation method so that the impact of this project on the environment can be minimized. So we can say that the EIA process actually protects the environment. Moreover, there will be optimum utilization of the resources. It also saves the overall time and also the cost of the project. So when you do an EIA process, the time and project cost can be considerably saved. It promotes community participation. Yes, whenever you start a project and we do the surveying, and also there will be public participation. When a new project is being implemented at any place, the local people will be involved in the EIA process. So thus it promotes the community participation. Also, there will be information given to the decision makers. It also lays a base for the environmentally sound projects. So any project can be justified as environmentally sound if there is a proper EIA done for the project. Also, environmentally sound and sustainable design can be implemented. Moreover, the increased project understanding by the public. So the public will have, whenever there is participation by the public at the planning and the implementation stage of any project, what happens is there will be a proper understanding of the particular project by the public. So these are the few benefits of the EIA process. Now coming to the various stages that are included in the EIA process. So EIA stages can be classified or can be listed as below. First stage is the identification stage. So this is that stage. In this stage, we will identify as to what will happen as a result of a particular project. So when a particular project is being implemented or a particular development happens, what will be the end result? So this study, or this is called as the identification stage. And next comes the prediction. So in the prediction stage, there will be a prediction of to what extent the changes can happen, or what will be the extent of change that can occur at the end of the project, after the project has been implemented. Then comes the evaluation stage. So in the evaluation stage, now as we told, there will be a prediction like what will be the extent of the changes. So do these changes matter? So in after a project is being implemented, the changes that occur or happens in the environment, does it really matter? So this is what we do in the evaluation stage. And suppose there are changes and these are adverse, then comes the mitigation stage, wherein we will be considering as to what can be done about this. So how can you mitigate it? So this is what happens in the mitigation stage. And the end process, or the end stage, is the documentation process. So that is, after all the complete process of the EIA is done, comes the documentation process, in which they decide or how the decision makers may be informed of what needs to be done regarding the EIA. So these are the few stages of the EIA process. So next is the evolution of the EIA. So considering the global scenario, the EIA was first introduced in the United States of America, that is the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, in 1970. And again in 1973 and 74, Canada, Australia and the New Zealand were the first countries to have followed the NEPA, or the National Environmental Policy Act. And during 1970s, other industrial and developing countries also introduced the formal EIA requirements, and in 1989, EIA became a standard requirement for all World Bank finance investment projects. So in the global scenario, we can say that it was first introduced in the United States of America. And what are the developments of the EIA in the 1990s? So, major reforms to well established EIA systems occurred in the 1990s. Also, the World Bank introduced the EIA policies. Then, international environmental conventions like the climate change, biodiversity, the desertification, etc. Then, there was the sustainability principle, and global issues receive increased attention. That was also in the during the 1990s. And also it was in the 1990s that India also formally adopted the EIA process for various projects or various developments. And formation of EIA legislation by many developing countries also occurred during this period of years and during this decade, that is during 1990s. And also there was a rapid growth in the EIA training process during the 1990s. Coming to the evolution of the EIA in India. So in India, it started in 1976-77 when the Planning Commission asked the Department of Science and Technology to examine the river valley projects from the environmental angle. And after the, mainly it was after the Bhopal gas tragedy, which took place in 1984, which pointed towards a need for enforcing international standards for environmental safety and also for preventive strategies to avoid the similar accidents in future. So it was then that they decided that we need to implement such process. And also the Environmental Protection Act or the EPA was enacted in 1986 by the Government of India. And to achieve the objective of the Environmental Act, one of the decisions taken was to make the EIA statutory body. And till 1994, the environmental clearance from the central government was an administrative decision which lacked any legislative support. And again, on 27 January 1994, the Union Ministry of the Environment and Forest, that is MOEF, Government of India, under the Environmental Protection Act, that is 1986, they promulgated the EIA notification making environmental clearance mandatory for expansion or modernization of any activity or for setting up new projects listed in the Schedule 1 of the notification. So that has been amended more than 12 times now. So this is actually the development of the EIA or the evolution of EIA process in the country, that is in our country, India. Now just have listed a few main laws in India. The Water Act in 1974, the Indian Wildlife Protection Act in 1972, then Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act in 1981, and the Environmental Protection Act in 1986. So these are the various main laws or environmental laws in India. Now coming to the various processes, or this figure or this flow chart actually represents the process of the EIA or the various stages involved in the EIA process. So as you see, the first process is screening. So once the project is being planned, the first thing that we would do is the screening process. So screening process is actually time consuming, and it is actually a process which is used to determine if the project requires a full EIA. So whenever a new project is being started, we have to first analyze or decide or determine whether this project requires a full EIA. Not all projects need an EIA. So there are a list of projects or industries before being implemented, we have to undergo an EIA process. So in order to determine if the project requires a full EIA, we have to do the project screening. So it is actually the process used to determine whether it is the proposed project or activity requires an EIA, and if so, at what level of environmental review is necessary. So at what level we have to review the environment, and this screening process is actually a pre-EIA process. So just before the assessment, the pre-EIA process is what we call as screening. Now the initial environmental examination, that is IEE, it is intended as a low-cost environmental evaluation that makes use of the information already available. So based on already available informations, the IEE would review and find out whether the project requires a full EIA. And also the screening process is something that boosts the process of the EIA and lead the matter to further assistance. So outcome of this screening at the end is that the decision will be finally made whether to include or exclude the project from the full EIA process. So after the IEE review, so we will find out, or the conclusion will be arrived as to whether EIA is required or not. So if the EIA is required, the next step will be scoping. So scoping is actually, as you see in the flow chart here, after screening there will be the initial environmental examination as to whether the project needs an EIA or not. If it is needed after the review, the next step is going to scoping process. If not required, of course you can continue with the project. So after the initial environmental examination, if an EIA is required, then we go on to the next stage, that is the scoping. And if it is not required, well, the project shall be continued. So what is scoping? So scoping is actually a key stage of the EIA process, or it is a process of interaction between the government agencies and the project proponents. So project proponents are the people who propose a project. So these people and the government agencies will interact during this period or this stage, that is the scoping stage. And the scoping stage also identifies the spatial and the temporal boundaries for the EIA. So the stage identifies the boundary and also the time of study, and various important issues and concerns will also be identified in the scoping process. And finally, we have to make a decision whether the EIA is needed or not. So after the screening process, in the scoping process, we will be making decision as to whether the project is having any adverse effect or it is having some beneficial effect. So the information that is needed at the end of EIA will be taken in the scoping process. Also, significant effects and the factors also shall be considered or identified in the scoping process. And scoping also establishes the terms for reference of full-scale EIA process. Now coming to the methods of scoping. So during the scoping process, they make the plan for public involvement and also for identifying the major issues of the public concern, and also evaluate the significance of the issues. So the public will be involved in this stage, wherein they will identify whether there are any major issues or concerns raised by the public, and also evaluate the significance of these issues. Also, there is distribution of information to the interested parties and also developing a strategy for addressing the priorities. And consideration of alternatives. This is again to seek or to ensure that the proponent has considered the other feasible approaches, including alternative project locations. Suppose in the screening process the project location is found that it is not feasible, then in this stage we can identify alternative project locations, scales, processes, layouts, etc. So we have to consider an alternative. Suppose a particular project is not feasible, consideration of alternatives can also be taken into account. Now, the description of the project or development action. So this step actually seeks to clarify the purpose of the project and to understand the various characteristics like the stages of development, the location and the processes. So next is the description of the environmental baseline. So in this process actually it includes the establishment of the present and the future state of the environment, that is in the absence of this project. So here a baseline situation is actually the existing environmental situation or condition in the absence of the activity. So here we take into account the changes that results from the natural events and from other human activities. So this is the description of the environmental baseline. Now coming to the identification of the key impacts, here it brings together the previous steps with a view to ensure that all potentially significant environmental impacts, as I told you, the adverse and the beneficial, all the impacts are being identified and taken into account in the process. And now coming to prediction of the impact. So in this step, it mainly aims to identify the likely magnitude of the change. So due to this impact, change here means the impact. Due to the impact, there will be some change in the environment when the project is being implemented, to the situation when you compare it to the situation when the project is not carried out. So what will be the change or the impact due to the implementation of a particular project, and what is the magnitude of this particular change. Now coming to the evaluation and assessment of the significance. So here again it seeks to assess the relative significance of the predicted impact. So after we predict, okay, this is a magnitude of impact that is going to happen after implementing a particular project, we have to assess the significance of these impacts in order to allow or to focus on key adverse impacts. We'll just have to focus on what are the main impacts. So for that we have to do the evaluation, and formal definition of significance is actually the product of the consequence and the likelihood. So if there is some consequence of a project, when you multiply it with the likelihood of occurrence of this particular consequence, then we can obtain the significance. That is how the significance is being defined. And now comes the mitigation process. So this actually involves the various measures by which we can avoid, or rather than avoid, we must say we can reduce or compensate for the adverse impacts on the environment. To mitigate means to control or to reduce or to avoid. And now another important stage in the EIA process is the public consultation and participation. And this process or this stage mainly aims to assure that there is quality, comprehensiveness and effectiveness of the EIA, and also more importance will be given to the views of the public, which will be given due consideration when you make the final decision. So public consultation and participation is very important process in the EIA process. Then EIS presentation. So this is again a vital step or an important step in the process. So if this is done badly, what happens is all the good work towards the EIA process shall be negated. So this is EIS is the environmental impact statement. So this the final acceptance of a project or rejection is based on how the EIS is being presented. And review, it is actually a systematic process which actually contributes to the final decision making process. So again, decision making, in this stage what happens is decisions are taken or made by the authority. So there will be a body, a governing body, that will take the final decision based on the EIS, that is the environmental impact statement. So they will consider all these matters and discuss and finally arrive at a conclusion whether or not to accept a project, whether to accept it, to defer it, or to reject the project. Now coming to the post decision monitoring. So this involves the recording of the outcomes associated with the impacts or the impacts due to the development. So after the decision to proceed with a particular project, so it can contribute to the effective project management. So after it is being decided, okay, we can go ahead with the project, we will decide as to whether it can contribute to the effective project management. Then comes auditing. So this follows monitoring and involves comparing the actual outcomes with the predicted outcomes, and also can be used to assess the quality of predictions and the effectiveness of the mitigation. And this provides a vital step in the EIA learning process. Again, this is a flow chart which represents the various stages of an EIA process. So just I'll repeat it. Firstly, identification of the proposal or a project, and the first stage is screening process. So in the screening process, we will decide as to whether an EIA is required or not required, and after the initial environmental examination, we would decide on whether it is required or not required. So if it is not required, well and good, we can go ahead with the project. If EIA is required, we go to the scoping process. So various stages of scoping was discussed earlier, and it is in this stage of scoping that even public participation or public involvement will be there. Then after that, the analysis of the various impacts, mitigation, then the EIS or the EIA report will be prepared, and there will be a review of the report. Again, there will be involvement of the public at the stage of review. Then finally, the governing body or will make the decision as to whether the EIA statement or the report has been approved or rejected. If it is approved, well and good, the project may be implemented. Otherwise, if it is not approved, they may either redesign the project or resubmit the EIA proposal.